Keeping It Real with Tanya and Nettie. And this is series 2, podcast 6, I think, The Realignment. Hello, Tanya. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Nettie. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm on cup of tea today. So I'm also on the world's greatest dad, just in case you didn't know. I'm multi-skilled. But yeah, I'm normally on water and a bit edgy today. So it's not me, it's spirit. So I think we'll start with you so I can settle into this mood that spirit's actually got.
Sure. Today was an interesting day. I woke up last night with this incredible headache at the back of my head that was just like pulsing. And I almost woke up with this feeling like I spent the entire night like clenched. And even through the day, I couldn't get my body to like unclench. I would be sitting there and working and doing things, but then I was having to kind of go, whew, like relax myself because like my whole body hurts. I didn't even want to come on the podcast, but I felt like I needed to. But I feel very tired. I feel like I'm kind of like what's happening for me physically, I feel like is related to sort of, I don't know what else to call it, really referring to my transition. But and I'm not usually like that where it's like, oh yeah, so this is because of this, and because I'm having all these spiritual experiences, blah blah blah. I'm not usually like that, but like it actually feels like that's what's happening. So I'm not sure. Part of it that I kind of feel like it is, and I made a doctor's appointment, is I shared on the last podcast that I have ADHD, but I feel like the medication maybe that I'm taking now is not vibing with my body and my mind. Like it's just not the chemical makeup, I guess I could say, that I'm needing right now. But yeah, it's this tensing and tensing and tense. It's weird and it's uncomfortable. And my back, like in between my shoulder blades, it's killing me. I'm like, I need to go to the chiropractor. Like I came into the podcast, I'm like, Nettie, I'll do this podcast, but I'm not wearing a bra. and that's why. But yeah, I'm tired. So I don't know what's happening. I have to say, like, I'm not taking the most fabulous care of myself because I'm just kind of getting my energy back. And, some nights I drink whiskey and eat popcorn for dinner. Like, not saying I'm always doing it right.
Yeah, very good.
So,
well, I'm feeling you. I've got the clenched teeth, and you're not quite sure why. And I actually went to a friend called me who is a masseuse, and he had a client that he was having some issues, and it was an older gentleman and up to retirement age sort of thing. And he just said, I don't know why, Nettie, but I felt like you would be able to help him. So I went out to see him yesterday evening, and I came back from there with kind of a weird energy and almost a disappointment in where society is. And I could feel that presence of spirit was there, and spirit was almost kind of pissed off. That's the only feeling I could sort of have, and pissed off with society and pissed off with where we're at. And it wasn't that spirit itself was pissed off, because they don't come in that way. It was just the feeling that they were giving me of where we are in society. And so I was caught in that kind of energetic bubble. And I was the same. I just felt like my body felt like it was curling up in a ball, and just, every part of my body muscle was trying to contract at the one time and not let me flow.
Is that ever interesting?
Yeah. And the interesting
that's kind
part
of what
I
felt like.
Yeah. And the interesting part of it wasn't, when I refer to the download, I say they, because it is a collective that's coming through, that came through, because it was like watching multiple lectures from different kind of beings. But this was not. This was more my spirit guide that I spend a lot of time with, and the one that connected me with you. So interesting when you came on to say you had this mood and this clenching, because I was like, oh, that's what's come through with this, a sort of stepped aside from the download and did some energy work outside of it. Most of my energy work has been with the download. So it was interesting to get back in that space. And I couldn't understand what I was really picking up. But when I went back to talk to the people I call they, the downloaders, they kind of had an edginess to them in a little bit of a way in what they wanted to talk about today. And we have mentioned it before. And we talked about the triangle that we've got with the diet, the mind, and the body. And running alongside of those is diet is community, body is touch, and mind is talking, but they're equally as important sort of to each one. And so they showed me the other side of the triangle. We had the triangle that had the air, water, and sun, and coming out to sleep, and they twisted that around, and on the other side I could see these touch, talking, community, and it came back to sleep as well, and that overtired and getting the sleep to process everything within that. And they were basically saying that as a society, we need to relearn to touch again. We need to relearn to talk again and to listen again, you know, and we need to relearn to be a community, and we're not there. And the way that they wanted me to come across and talk about this is actually edgy or aggressive, or it's not the way my personality is. So
It's more my personality.
Yeah, probably. So it's kind of like it's a difficult topic. I didn't want to come on either. Like I was like, I don't want to sort of have to get into that, but they were, you know, their strong words were actually that it's time to take action, and it's time to make a plan, and it's time to change, and we need to stop excuses. And they also mentioned how we tend to disappear to an easy road. So if we look at those three things, touch, talking, and community, we might say, oh, I'm really disconnected from my community, and I don't really like people. I don't want to go there. So you go, okay, I'm going to talk to my husband more over coffee on Saturday mornings, and then tick, I'm moving towards it. But they're actually saying the opposite should take place. You should actually go to your hardest one first, because your other ones will correct themselves just by going to the hardest one. So going to community might mean that you get in a group where you're talking and discussing, and then you end up in a walking group, and then therefore you've ticked mind, body, and community at once. But if you avoid the hardest one, and they're basically saying that the shift that they're predicting needs people to move to that harder one, and not just say, oh, it's okay to, for now, not to be in this space, you know, like I'm going to do it in a month, or I'm going to do it in 2 months or 3 months, or I'm just going to do a little bit at a time. They're basically saying that it's a really important time, and their words were they said, change is hard, right? They were like, but change is so rewarding. And what they're hoping or needing is a collective change. And that's part of our realignment, is to actually follow those kind of steps to make sure that we are looking after our mind and our body and our diet, that we are looking after, you know, taking the steps to do that. And that is, you know, the air, the sun, the water, the touch, the talking, and the community. And then through the center of the star that pulls it right out is making sure we get sleep. And with all of those, we will get sleep. That sort of comes, but the sleep's important. So yeah, I feel really kind of on edge with it. And they started to give me all these ways to do this, and they wanted us to talk about in our own lives of how we currently address it, and also how we don't. And they said to look deep into what was mine. They were talking about me personally. What was my biggest area of change? And it's quite interesting, this, because I thought I was pretty much aligned with all of this. And so I'm like, well, I've got a great diet. I'm good with touch, you know, my mind, I do a nice balance of mind and body, tick, tick, you know, I'm talking, I'm touching, I'm in the community. Like, what more do you want from me? Like, aren't I aligned? And they were basically saying that you know, if you were there, you would be dead.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, right. Well, aren't I meant to help others? You know, like this is quite confronting for me because I know I'm not, you know, that won't let me use the word perfect, but I'm not perfect. I have so much learning to do, but I don't know where to go to change because I feel like I'm already doing this star. Like, give me a star that is a mini star in this star so I can find the bit that I need to go. Where I've got friends, they look at it and go, oh, that's so important. I need to touch more, or I need to do this more. And I'm like,
Right.
which one's me? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there isn't one for you.
Well, they're telling me there is. So I'm frustrated by it. I feel like, and they're aggressively telling me it is to self-reflect more.
But
And
you
that
just
I'm,
don't know which, because you don't know what to put your finger on.
yeah, and I'm blocking the one that's hard. Okay, so that's sort of the message that they're giving to most people. You know, you're blocking the hard one to not see it as, okay, that's an area that I need. And they also just showed me a little star, like, because I'm kind of asking at the same time as, can you give me guidance here? You've put me out on this stage, like, help
Yep.
me. Don't throw me in the deep end and not give me a floaty. So they showed me a star and that's like this, and then they showed me the really bright three-dimensional star. And I think what they're saying is, yes, you've got the formula and the stars, but you've got to pull it out. And it's like, well, how do I move to the next step? How do I pull it out? And I know that getting myself into community is the one that I can see that now as I'm talking, and I can see that they're showing me that I'm being too enclosed. And interesting, what I did last night was go and meet up with a community member, and who in it when I got there, I knew the wife because she had been in my life when my son was little. So this was a really interesting connection of kind of circular community. So they are giving me the answer as I talk, that it is community. But I'm interested, when you look at that star, when you look at those things, is there an area that you go, okay, that's where I go? Is there an area that you would go comfortably rather than the other way? Like, does that make sense?
For me, the biggest one would be probably diet, because I'm not gonna lie, I have been laying on my couch drinking whiskey, eating crackers and
Blue
fucking blue
cheese.
cheese. Like,
I love blue
and
cheese.
these, sometimes some nights it's popcorn. Like, I haven't been taking care of my body. It's super well, but on that, I'm also being really gentle with myself. And I'm like, I'm gonna do what I have to do if this is what I gotta do to get, you know what I mean? Like, as I'm
Yeah.
sort of going through a transition. But I think for me that will be my hardest. When I'm focused on it, I'm not a terrible eater, but this is like not eating. Like,
Yeah.
for a while, like, I just didn't have an appetite. And then I'm coming home from a long day and I'm lonely and I'm missing touch. And, so I'm kind of comfort eating,
Yeah.
but
And
also not eating enough. Like,
I think that is interesting because it's like, okay, well, this triangle's wonderful, but where does trauma fit into that? Where does grief fit into that? Where does, you know,
exactly. and
those
and
sort of
that's
things?
where I think that I certainly don't want to be sending anybody a message that you don't just, like, to me, I think sometimes we need a crutch.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need those things. It's like, I can't focus on this right now. I have to focus on keeping my house clean and taking care of my son and going to work. And I don't have the energy to focus on it. And I
Yeah.
haven't had, I'm being very honest. Like, I
And I
haven't
think
had the
that's why they're
energy.
picking on me, because they're basically saying, okay, you're not in a stage where you've got issues, right? So girl, get your shit
Yeah.
together, and I think it's, they're saying that we get comfortable in the patterns that we get when we have grief or when we have loneliness, or we have all those different things, that we forget that at some stage we are not in that, we're just in a pattern. And so, you know, for you in a year's time, if you're sitting here going, I'm still eating popcorn on the couch having
Oh
blue
no,
cheese.
and I don't see that happening. In fact, I
No, but I
do.
think they're saying that it does for some, right? And so you go, shit, where did I get this thing where it's okay to do this? Oh, that was 7 years ago when I had that. I picked up this bad habit. Now it's a habit, because they talked a little bit about addiction as well. And interestingly enough, I just listened to a podcast, and I haven't listened to a podcast from this person for ages. In fact, I'm the worst at podcasts, doing a podcast. I don't make much time to listen to things or read things, but I think I've mentioned that before. But it was on addiction, and they were basically, this person mentioned that in addiction, a lot of the people who are addicted to things like drugs and alcohol are highly intuitive. In fact, they were saying that they find
That's
that the
what they were
most
saying in one of the downloads that they did with me.
yeah, the most intuitive thing. And I think they also, that when I was looking at that, I had spirit sort of come in and say, that is correct, that highly intuitive people can be addicted, but it's also true that non-highly addicted people can be, intuitive people can also be addicted. So addiction doesn't hang on to either person, just like any other trait doesn't actually go to that person. It just masks their intuitiveness. So you see someone who seems not intuitive, and then they get out of their addiction and they're so intuitive, and you're like, wow, that was masking it. So they were basically saying that that is correct, that highly intuitive people can be addicted, and when they lose their addictions, this world opens up to them for that they didn't know they had very quickly. But it doesn't mean because you're addicted that you're highly intuitive. So they wanted to sort of point that out. And the reason they're saying that is because they don't want an excuse for your addiction, to say, oh, I'm addicted because I'm highly intuitive. Well, actually, no. You're addicted because you're addicted.
Because you
Addicted
can't
because of illness.
process your emotions and
Yeah.
your sensitivity because don't
Not
have the
aligned.
proper,
Yeah.
you're not aligned
That's right.
properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
And
that's fair.
yeah, and they said that escapism comes in many forms. And so I would say I was talking about not being someone who has an addictive personality, like to drugs or alcohol, things like that, but I have an addiction to control. And that is why I don't have an addiction to drugs and alcohol, because I can set a goal for myself. And if someone said to me, you can't eat bananas for a year, it's impossible for you not to be able to do that. I'm like, shit, I can do that. I'm in control of myself. And then I have this almost addiction to not eating bananas because I am not going to like lose control. So I'm actually the other extreme, where I am so control freak that I need to control my life and not let go as much. And so therefore I get addicted to control, which is,
that makes sense.
a big flaw. But, it's something that I have to work on. And it probably comes back to, that's a little bit why I can't go into community in a big way, because then I can't control what people say about me, what my life. Like, the more exposure you have, the less control you have of how other people you come across.
Well, holy shit, Nettie's not perfect. This whole time,
far from perfect.
Nettie's been so aligned, and Tanya's been the fucking shit show.
No.
But Nettie's joining the show, folks. Welcome, Nettie. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I like it when spirit messes with your life.
Yeah, I know you do, but I'm about done. I'm about done with it being just me. So carry on.
Yeah. So I think for me, that's where, when I look at these triangles where I've got to actually try and let go of the control, and we all try and control little things in our lives, and try and not worry about, not that I ever really worry about what other people think, but I must, to a certain degree, worry about my exposure in the community, what happens when I don't know what's happening, if that makes sense. And if you let yourself out there, I don't like being the person up on a stage. I don't like being that. I don't think that's the role that I was built for. But in saying that, if I control myself,
I beg to differ.
but if I just expose myself enough of what I can control, then therefore I feel like the message will get across. And I hear messages get across and taken the wrong way all the time. And that's the point of the download, is that spirit saying that the message of awakening or realignment is off, and that needs to be corrected because people aren't here, like they're hearing what they want to hear, not what they should be hearing from some wonderful spirit leaders. And yeah, so I don't want to be that person that's being heard by millions of people, because then how can I control that they understand what I'm saying correctly? So there it is on a platter, flaws and all.
No, gee, Nettie, it's like, don't get naked with them or anything. I just, I'm sorry, I don't want to undermine you, but I think, Nettie, this is pretty small. Pretty small, my friend.
But it's not for me,
but
right?
I think that you do very well being in the teaching and I am the aligned person role. You do very well there. So maybe
in my controllable section.
Exactly. Because then you're not having to look at yourself. You're just sitting in control. Well, I'm aligned. Well, are you though? I think you are, but I mean,
no, but true. Yeah, like right? That's what spirit's telling me. Yeah, you look at the triangle, you tick all the boxes, but it's time to go deeper.
Yeah, but that's what they're saying to me, is that right? Like, is that you're very comfortable there being that, like, oh, I'm the one that's aligned kind of thing. And there's no way that we are. We are all having a human experience, every single one of us.
Yeah.
I would consider myself to be somewhat aligned. Do I have all these parts put together? No. But I don't think that makes me, I've got a fuzz floating.
Oh, you're very aligned. I am sure you're very aligned. Absolutely.
Yeah, but I drink whiskey and eat popcorn for dinner, Nettie. Like, I'm not following, I know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that you're like not aligned if you're not ticking every box to what it is. It's just meaning that your star could be so much brighter than what it already is, right? So if you go, okay, I can feel I'm following my intuition, my intuitive and my physical mind, I feel like they're aligned. And then you go, okay, how do I make my star brighter? Then it's for you. You've said diet, right? For me, I'm like, well, I eat well. I've got good mental health. I walk every day. I've got all these things for my body. I'm doing all those things. So where's my point? But it's showing, my points in all of those. It's control of my diet. It's control of my mind. It's control, it's letting go.
Yes, because I think that's a really solid point, because, and that's kind of what they were saying. And I don't want to turn this into sort of a counseling session or anything, but
I pick on Nettie first.
Right. But it kind of brings you back to that gym analogy that I used a number of podcasts ago. We can look at somebody that's going to the gym and be like, oh, yay, they're so healthy and wonderful because they're going to the gym and they're working out, and look at their great body. But why are they doing that? Are they doing it because they love and adore their body? Or are they doing it perhaps because of control? So is my diet aligned because that is intuitively for me, or is my diet aligned because that's what spirit told me to do and I'm not going to do anything different because I need to control it? Because I need to hold on to the identity of being aligned,
And
I'm not saying that's what you're doing.
And I think that's a good point. And I don't think I did, because I was doing this before I got this information. But I think the thing with me is because I think I tick the boxes, I'm comfortable being controlled in a little star. And I'm like, oh yes, here I am. But as they said,
expand your star.
And I'm controlling it. And if I just let go, right? Okay, I'm going to take the community thing to the next level. I'm going to take talking to the next level. I'm going to take this to the next level. Then I could, and I lose the lack of controlling of all those points that are helping me be so aligned. And I'm really happy. I'm content.
It's stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And stop saying, okay. And as Spirit said, if you're happy and you think that this is as good as you're going to get, then you should be dead. Like it's, you know, and which I think is a bit harsh, but they're basically saying not to die. They're saying that you can be a much bigger, the star can be so much bigger and so much brighter. There's never a spot where it can stop. And that doesn't mean that necessarily you're going to be reaching people as in a star, you know, like famous. It just means that you're going to meet your, you know, your little line of realignment, and your little star could be really long and really large. And it doesn't mean I will be equally balanced, but I'll actually be
more expanded,
more expanded in what I'm doing. And that's where it's telling me. And I think the point of what they're saying for this is, if you can easily identify where your triangle dot is, then that's the area that they want you to thing on. But if you look at it and you're quite content with where you are, don't think, well, oh, they're showing me this download came to me because this is me, I'm perfectly aligned
and I'm saying, all done. That right, that does not mean that your star can't expand.
Yes. And they're
step
saying
outside of your comfort zones.
Yeah, you know, drop the control, come on girl, like push yourself in each of those areas. Pick an area where you want to push yourself first, and you'll feel a bit off balance because you will be going, okay, I'm going to get into this area. And then there is an adjustment period where you go, oh, I'm not quite sure this is right. This feels uncomfortable. I'm feeling weighted to one side. And then the other ones you'll pick up, and either automatically through community, you're starting to get to discussion, you start to get into touch, you know, because you're around people. And so it'll align nicely. And but there will be an adjustment period where it feels uncomfortable and you're like, I'm not. And maybe that's what I felt last night, because I went out into community and helped this gentlemen to do some energy work. They had no idea. They knew who I was in our town. They had no idea who was turning up. When I told them, oh, it's you. Oh, wow.
It's the White Witch.
Yeah, the White Witch. Yeah, but it was like, oh my God. And then when I started to do the work with them, and I was saying, you know, I think you need this, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh my God, yes, you're right. My eyes are out. I'm getting glasses tomorrow. Like everything that I said, they were just like, how do you know this stuff? And I'm like, well,
I don't, you know, Spirit does.
Yeah, I'm an intuitive and I always have been. And so, and it was I came away uncomfortable because I exposed myself to a new group of the community. And, you know, I was blaming Spirit for that uncomfortableness, but maybe that was my physical reaction to that kind of exposure where I was just like, oh, I don't know if I want to be in here.
Oh, but Nettie, can I ever understand all of this? That pushing outside of your comfort zone. It brings up a couple points for me. One, do you think I want to get on a podcast and talk to a whole bunch of people and cry? Like that is stepping outside of my comfort zone.
That wasn't on your bucket list.
No, it wasn't. I used to be very scared of public speaking. I thought that I would be a great public speaker. But when I very first started teaching in policing in this area that I'm quite experienced in, I shit the bed. I would stand in front of that class and like, I'm pretty, you know, I got a pretty big personality. I laugh, I joke around, I have fun. I got up there and I was like, blah, 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 blah. Like I was terrified. And I actually had to take Ativan the first couple times that I would public speak. It terrified me. Now I can get in front of groups and I can teach, and I'm actually teaching next week on a course, right? So it's pushing yourself outside of those things. Do you think I want to be 44 years old and on this stupid dating app and, you know, going on these dates and putting myself out there? Like, you know, I'm very good at challenging myself to steps outside of my comfort zone. But there's also aspects of me where it's like, but this is as far as I'm going to go. And I know that.
Yeah.
In some places, you know, even just at the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about doing more videos. Spirit's kind of guiding me to like actually talk on the camera and put these videos out there. And it's super uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm like, oh, I'm putting myself out there and da da da. But the big, huge, like you said, you went to this person's house in community and it was uncomfortable. how do you think it is in policing when you're when you're an intuitive medium
Yeah.
coming out of the closet? Let me tell you, I mean, I probably to a lot of people seem like an absolute nut job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like even to just talk about anything that's even a little bit in the spiritual realm, where you're talking about like your shadow work and you're talking about archetypes. And there was a gal in the office the other day that was talking about these things, and I didn't really say to her, you know, I know, I get it, like listen to my podcast kind of thing. But to even just be talking in that more sort of open, gosh, help me with the words, like
Forum. Yeah. Like exposure.
just, yeah, to just even be talking like that in a police and community, people are like, are you kidding me? Like, go catch the bad guys, stuff your feelings, what are you doing? You
Yeah.
know? So coming out and out of my comfort zone, it's been a long, long, long journey, and it's been very guided by spirit. So what I will
Yeah.
say to you is that spirit's going to guide this for you. So I just need to fix my diet. You get to
I know.
expand.
I need to expand everything at once or I'll go, phew. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's an important kind of lesson to us too. It's like a never ending journey of just like, and as we're getting older and, you know, intuitive and our physicals start changing. And, you know, this is one of the issues of this gentleman that I saw. He'd got, you know, into his 60s, and what he was doing was not working, and his brain was shutting down. It was just, he wasn't in his intuitive mind at all, which he relied on a lot, but he was giving too much to his physical, and that was just kind of shutting everything down. And so it's a lesson for me to change with my age and change with the thing, and keep trying to expand and keep trying to shine, and not get caught up with it. And they actually gave lots of examples through our lives of how we do join community too, which is interesting, because now I'm going back to the one that they were talking about was communities. For me, was a starting point. So I should have got that. But they talked about even when someone is unwell and getting that community around you, and they're talking about that what they call your energy circle, which is just a group of community really. And they're saying that you've got your GP, like your doctor, and then you've got your, say it's a husband that's sick, then you've got your wife, but then you've also got your masseur, and then you've got your intuitive healer. And they're saying that the way that we should be doing that is all of us together actually working and understanding each other. Instead, we go off to this person, look for the answer, we come back, oh, I don't know what they're saying, go to this person. And in this case, for this man, he was like, I was the 6th or 7th person helping him that went in the room, but no one was talking to each other. So, you know, he's got a GP, he's got a psychologist, he's got a specialist, he's got a physio, he's got a masseur. Now he's got this girl coming in who's an intuitive healer. Like, you know.
And he's got me coming in. He needs his hormones checked.
Yeah. And he said, I'm one confused person. I'm just confused. And it was because his circle was not a circle. It was like input, output, input, output, input, output, input, output. And he's already having brain issues. And now you want to process all this physical kind of information and not sit back into your intuition. And they were sort of explaining that we don't do that very well in Australia in particular, and I don't know if we do it very well in any of our Western countries in particular. We don't do that circle. But they talked about mothers groups. When you have a baby, you join a mother. That's an energy circle. That's being in community. That's a way that you can do it. You can start walking groups. You can start fishing clubs, you can start kayaking with a friend. And if you're out actually talking and doing, we went crabbing when we were over with Tanya, and that was a great day for 4 of us that went, 5 of us that went.
Yeah.
Because we were physically doing things, but then we were talking, and then we were, you know, it was, and we were collecting food that we then later ate for the day. Like, it's an example of how in your everyday life you balance that diet, mind, and body in one little adventure. Activity. And they're the sort of things when we're sitting at home and we're down and we're depressed and everything doesn't seem right, that we can start saying, well, what can I do in that triangle? What can I look for that's going to tick those boxes, and see whether that helps me, it gets me off the couch and helps me in any way. And it's obviously not when you're in that stage of grief or in trauma that you've been through, because your body, you do need that. You need that dumping stage where you just kind of resettle in. But then it's that people
It's
who are
recognizing when it's over and
yes,
it's time
not
to
creating a
make
habit.
changes. But like, I'm going to be honest, the best that I have been able to do lately is get some stuff done around the house. Like last night I came home from work and I was actually feeling the desire and drive to organize some things and deal with some laundry and clean out a closet and deal with other things. But the reality is I have not had the wherewithal within myself
To do
I
it.
would just be working on adrenaline if I pushed sort of through this desire to sit and eat blue cheese. Oh, okay, I eat more than just blue cheese, just so we're clear, but it's kind of just my joke. Like I just sit and
That's
eat
all
blue
we
cheese.
had at her house: one crab and blue cheese, blue cheese, blue
Blue
cheese.
cheese, that's it. Yep. Yep.
It's interesting because I think it's a very, very valid point, because the guy that I saw when he was 60, when he started to feel this, he just pushed through it and he just went with his day life. And now 6
And
years
that's not good,
later,
because then you're actually fueling your body with cortisol and adrenaline in order to get through these things, because you're ignoring your body saying, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't have the energy to do it. But you're like, but I have to do it, because you're of the mindset that you have to do it. So that's something that I'm really, really honoring this time.
And interesting, that core between this triangle, like that pushes it right out, is sleep and rest. Like it's
imperative.
It's like the bar that runs between the 2 points, the star, right? And so when I turned and saw the other side of the chart and I thought sleep's there again, I'm like, what? Sleep is on the other side. They can't put sleep twice. That doesn't work with my control. And, and then they showed it in the 3D and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that works. Like the sleep is the core, and everything goes back to making sure that you get that rest and that sleep. And at the moment, for you, that's what's going to actually strengthen your triangle back again and keep your triangle alive, is that rest and that downtime.
And that's one part of the relationship too that wasn't working for me, because so many balls were getting dropped on his part that I was kind of having to come in and pick them up and carry so much, that I found I had to be very in my masculine and my body, my spirit, everything. Like I used to be able to run at that pace. And now I'm like, I can't. Like, we had a conversation. I had a conversation with him. I'm like, I can't do this. I am so exhausted. I feel sick. Like I'm going to get very ill. I cannot. And so I think it's that recognizing that, what is my body and my mind actually asking from me? And do I have the bravery and the courage and the not wanting to control everything to do that?
Yeah. And what you've said is so important, because we've been talking about when you're almost doing too little in an area that you should go. But what you were doing was you doing way too much in the body.
Yes.
And then therefore you didn't have time for the mind connection as much as you would like to, because you're like, I'm exhausted. By the time I get there, I can't. I'm eating crap because I haven't got time to make a pesto from scratch. Like, who does that? In my busy life.
But I was still doing all of those things, Nettie. We were still eating well, because I was just
holding on to it all.
I got this. I'm running the show. But then I would just get so exhausted. I'm painting my kitchen. I mean, it was stupid.
Yeah. And you were trying to hold all those triangle points out. And in fact, what you needed to do was retract and go, okay, let's get it back in balance with my mind. And then now I can grow it again.
But there had to be that removal of it from my life for me to be able to get more in alignment with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's probably, when they talk about change is hard, but change is so rewarding. It's in both ways. It's adding something to your life is hard, when you're not used to it. And taking it away is hard. And what you just said was like the key. It's like actually recognizing what that is. Like, you know, is that my job? Is that my partner? Is that
Is it
my,
that you don't have boundaries? Is it that
is
you
it,
give too much? Is
yeah,
it, you know, you're going to your job and you're taking on too much because you don't know how to say no? Like, is the job actually the problem? You know? And for me, I tried every level of possibility to take that other person to be able to heal, to get to a place so that they could help hold the stuff they were dropping on me so that I could survive in the relationship. And it eventually
yeah,
got to a place where it was like, I no more, no more.
yeah.
I can't do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's it. You know, you're not saying at all, oh, actually, I recognize that it's my partner and I aren't compatible, leave him. You know, it's like you did all that work first to
Oh,
say,
100%.
yeah, like, you know, I want the
It's not
solution
like I
to be
just
we're
up and was
together.
like, yeah, bye.
Yeah. And
Yeah, no, I
it's
put in
getting to
all the
that point where you
work.
go, okay, I've ticked all the boxes of trying to
Yeah,
get there, and I can now
15 times,
recognize,
each one of
yeah,
them 15 times.
yeah. And this is going to be
Because I'm an
so
overachiever.
hard. Yeah.
I'm an
And you know what it
overachiever.
shows too, how aligned you are, shows how quickly you've come through this. Like, I can't believe how, like, I know it is still hard for you, but the fact that last week you were talking about
It's
dating,
not. It's not
yeah,
that
see
hard.
there. Like, you know, the hard things are probably the things, it's not getting back with him. It's like the touch and things that you miss, you know,
Yeah.
not the fact that you're like, I remember you going, I'd have him back for anything. We walked in the door now, you know, that was like 6 weeks ago. That was not that long ago. I thought we'll be taking a
2
year to
months? It's been at least 2 months.
2 months. Has that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would have said about the crossover of Christmas and New Year, you were still in things. What are we up to?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that was hard. And it happened like 15 days before Christmas
Yeah.
when
So
we had 4 kids.
that is only
Like
2 months away, like 6
2
weeks.
months ago, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing that people need to know is the more that you get your intuitive and your physical balance in a good spot, right? When shit hits the fan, you
The
come out
better
of
you
it.
move through it.
Yes.
In the past, I can 110% say if this situation happened many years ago, I would have been adrenaline fueling my life, cortisol, trying, you know, pushing through. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. There is no way I would have saved my energy for work, come home, taken care of my son, and relaxed for the last 2 months. I've
Yeah.
literally relaxed for the last 2 months. The biggest thing that I've done is I go for like 5K walks every day at lunch at work. And giving myself the space to do that, being okay with myself. I'm okay if I'm eating popcorn and whiskey
Yeah.
some night for dinner. I'm actually okay with that. It's
Yeah.
starting now just to be like, okay, Tanya, like, you know, but I was okay with it. I wasn't beating myself up about it. It was like, this is what I need to do right now. This is what feels okay. This is what's getting me through. Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's a valuable message about like, this isn't an avoidance tactic. We're not supposed to, okay, spirit said this, I need to align.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go eat. Oh, yep. Okay. So today now I'm going to go out with my community and you know, I need to make sure I'm working my physical body. Oh, now meditate.
Yeah.
You know,
Where is my triangle pointing? What am I actually doing?
yeah.
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
expanding? Is my star small? Is my star
Yeah.
big? No, you listen to yourself.
Yeah.
So
But it is
maybe,
good to sit back and to go, okay, where am I at in my flow? Am I comfortable? And I could just say, okay, I'm happy being a little star for now. Give me some more time
but you
in
can
this.
be a little star and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's right. And I could just say, right, I'm just going to keep going along like this forever.
They keep
But
saying, but life's asking you for more.
yes, that's right. And I can feel that pressure. I'm aligned
Mhm.
enough to feel the pressure, which is annoying because if I wasn't aligned, then I probably just would go along and not even give a
Yeah.
shit. Yeah,
And
but
the
I can,
interesting thing is that you're being pushed to expand your star, and I'm being pushed to shrink
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like, quit being such a high achiever, Tanya.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and I
look at the
am.
bar in the middle, the rest and sleep bar is that those
Mhm.
points is where you had to go to, it's
Yeah.
like, hang on a minute, you've not been, addressing that rest, that downtime enough. That's where you're going to be for now. That's how you're going to heal. And I think that's the importance of it being on both sides of the triangle, is it's crucial to know when to rest and when to not. And like I was a workaholic for a long time, and I can see why. I still am, but I can see why it's not so much in the physical as it used to be, because as I move through that graph, I'm like, oh, that makes sense to me. And so it's hard to then, when you're not physically actively doing stuff all the time, to think that you're still doing something. But my downtime, my resting on the couch, nibbling on something, is actually where my intuitive mind has the best play,
And I think life
it's like
very
going to a
much is,
consultation with spirit. It's just like, hang on a minute, physical stuff is overwhelming. I need to rest my body. And now I'm going to go into the doctor's room, into the spirit world, and just sit there for a while and eat, not even think, and let my subconscious have its own, discussion, and just eat popcorn and watch a movie. It's a lot more is happening when you're doing that than what you think.
yeah. I think it's really, so I was at the beginning of this podcast, she said, oh, Nettie said, oh yeah, well, I listened to the podcast and I liked it and blah, blah, blah. And there's these, I listened to it, and there's very few cringy pieces, but one thing that we say all the time is, it's very interesting. All the time.
Really?
We say it all the time.
That's
and
interesting.
Yeah. And then it's very interesting. But it is interesting.
Do you know why we do that?
These are not just word fillers. We are literally getting this information at the same time as you guys, and it is interesting.
Yeah, I was going to say, we get it, because even when it comes out of our own mouth, it's often being channeled down in, like it's
As
direct
we're getting
spirit.
it.
And so then we're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Not meaning our own thing is interesting, but but what spirit just said. Yeah. So we're acting almost like there's two other people in the room, and we're saying to them, oh, wow, that's a good comment. Oh, you're clever.
Yes.
What a great thought.
Yeah. So, I did sort of, this podcast didn't actually go the way that I sort of expected. I had this idea that we were going to talk about this sort of circle, because hormones, I just looked at the word hormones that I wrote down because I wanted to bring it up. Anyway, this circle that we were sort of talking about, and hormones are very much a piece of it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. What was I going to say?
You're right. Yeah, go.
The tensing of my body. What is going on? Is this like an energy release? Is this on a physical level, where it's like, okay, I think I need to change my ADHD meds, which I do intuitively think, but like, are my hormones out? Is this energy moving out of my body? Like, I'm dehydrated. I'm dry. Like, it's weird. I'm drinking as much water as I can.
I'm drinking water like there's unbelievable, like, as well. And I think it is. I think for me, and it may be the same thing for you, it's almost like a frequency or an energy shift. And it's like, that's why this star, this part's coming up for me now. It's like, okay, you're comfortable where you are, you've got it all going, but now we're just going to change the frequency a little bit. We're just going to.
Okay. Yes. That makes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, they just said stars. If you look at stars, contract and expand, and that's exactly what my physical body is doing, contracting, expanding, and like, it hurts.
Yeah,
my body hurts.
Yeah, and I was like, I think I was trying to hold on to the little star, like they were wanting to do this, and I'm like, oh, I'm clenching my teeth. And
maybe that's what's happening for me too, is I need to not be holding on to whatever it is that's being released.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised that this is happening in line, and especially because the guide that was coming through all yesterday for me is the one that we first met with and that I usually follow. And so that they're sort of you know, we're almost hitting the same point in opposite manners on the same time of the stars, you know, but they're just showing us that that star does mold, and it's not actually necessarily going to make you more aligned or less aligned. Either way, you need it to be a fluid kind of thing. And I love that you brought up that stars actually do that, because they do, and I'd never
Yeah.
really thought about that.
Well, it wasn't my idea. They told me.
Oh,
Yeah, no, they said, well,
that's
that's what stars
interesting.
do. Isn't that interesting? That's what stars do. They expand and they contract. The other thing that I say a lot of is thing. I say, and
Ah.
all those things, or all those type of things. And I was like, I think that's because the information's coming in so fast that I can't always find the words. So I say things. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have the same. I miss words. I was in the,
Yeah.
because I never listen back. I don't listen to anything. And I did this week. And yeah. And I was like, oh, it's like I go, you know, like I don't finish it because they're already giving
Yeah.
me the next part of the information. So I'm having trouble keeping up
Yeah.
with the discussion. So
Well,
I do a similar thing.
you know
But
what I
it'd be
love
interesting
about
for
this?
listeners to actually write in the comments of words that you think that, and if there's one that you really hate, we will work at
We'll
not
work
saying
on it.
it.
We'll work on it. I want to work on interesting, but I don't know another one. I don't know another
Ah,
word,
yeah. Okay. Someone give us a new word for that's interesting.
because it is just plain interesting. But what I
Mm.
found really interesting, just kidding. What I'm really enjoying about this podcast, and it really was by fluke, because they had been downloading information that I guess will go into next week's podcast, is that we're keeping it real. Like,
Yeah.
we're not spiritual teachers that don't have our own lessons. We're not spiritual teachers that aren't being challenged. And I don't want to come on here at any time, and I assure you I don't, as though I am not just like every single one of you.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
we're all having our own journey. We all fall off. We all lay on the couch and drink whiskey, and you know, or we cry and when we don't want to, and you know, or we're challenged to step outside of our comfort zone. I don't want to be that person that comes out here and appears to be higher or better than, because I am not.
Yeah, absolutely. I so see the world as a circle, not a ladder. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, you know, that everybody comes in with something to say and something to do equally. And it's
Yeah.
just that, you know, we're using a platform to hope that we help connect with other people who then they'll use their voice and their expertise to help someone else, whether it's not on a podcast or not. It might be in a classroom, it might be down the street, it might be whatever they're in their workplace, but everyone has the equal purpose. It's just a different purpose. And yeah.
Well, and it ties sort of into previous podcasts, what they're showing me, where we talked about these messages, this falsified expectation of what awakening and this new age looks like.
Yeah.
So it's important for people not to strive to have this level of perfection. Or what they show me is that when they're listening to a spiritual teacher, they feel like they have to be at that level at all times, which is creating spiritual bypassing, because their human bodies can't actually handle that. So they spiritually bypass, or they have that falsified expectation that's actually causing disconnect within themselves. So
Yeah.
my message would be, and I've said it so many times from the beginning, is we are not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the human experience is very much the important piece to keep in mind. We are supposed to be being human. We're supposed to be flawed. We're supposed to make mistakes. We're supposed to be embarrassed when we go outside of our comfort zone. We're supposed to have all of those emotions. And I would suggest, Nettie, that it's not even about, it's about you not being comfortable with discomforting emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved what you
Right?
said last week that I think needs
That
to be
just came
said.
to me.
Yeah. I think what you said last week needs to be said again, and it's actually stayed in my mind, is that when we watch a podcast or you know, listen to a podcast, we're only seeing
don't
like
see
a
their real lives.
snippet of that person's life, and we forget that the realism that actually comes with it. And, you know, I'd love to do a podcast where we spoke to other people to say, hey, what does your real day look like, you know, as part of their, as part of the thing. And interesting to hear the struggles and the things that they have with their own thing, because we are least likely to talk about those because they're not, you know, you don't seem relevant. We don't, I mean, we shove that on the table. We're quite open with all the shit that's happening. In particular, your wonderful life gets showcased to the world. But, you know, even our emotional feelings.
Okay,
when,
you're coming to the dance. You're coming to the
that's
dance.
right. And even emotionally when, you know, my son went to uni, like those things happen and they change you and they adjust you. And maybe my adjustments happened a week after he's left for a reason. You know, like it's time, okay, you don't have to have so much in your core for that person being every day in your physical. So now you need to your star needs to adjust a bit. So it's time.
And just right before we close, my psychologist used to always say to me, I've been seeing him for like 10 years or so, and he would say, the Dalai Lama, I believe it was the Dalai Lama that he used as an example. He's very enlightened because he has people that do his laundry and wash his clothes and cook his meals and feed him and protect him from outside energies. He's got all of these people doing all of these humanly things to him. Of course, he can remain spiritually connected. The rest of us can't. We don't have that luxury.
Yeah. So should I get Andy to start doing my laundry and cooking and answering my calls?
So that you can remain aligned. He can go out into the community and you can stay
and I can just sit here going,
I love it.
No.
What an interesting, I just said it again. What an interesting talk. I don't care. What an interesting talk that we just had today. Thank you, Nettie. It was lovely. I'm actually very glad that I came on. When I get to come on and connect to spirit, I find it very healing. And they're showing me that the healing actually goes out to our listeners as well. So thank you for being here, everybody. Please like and subscribe. And next week, hopefully, is when we will be talking about the wheel and the higher level of consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to you then. Bye.